Welcome to my perspective and comments. And I'd like to talk about what we've been seeing here with the COVID tyranny. And now we have another example. One of the top players, number one players in the tennis arena has been barred from coming into the United States. That's Novak Djokovic. He's a 21-time Grand Slam champion, and he has announced here the last few days that he has withdrawn from the U.S. Open because of the federal government's COVID vaccine-related travel restrictions. You know, non-citizens can't come into the United States unless they can prove that they've had the jab. A joke, especially when you look at what's happening here with the CDC just announced here, August 11th. The CDC explicitly said that people with a prior infection have protection against severe illness. And the CDC also removed the 6-foot social distancing that they've been advising since the beginning of the pandemic. So here we see the CDC moving one way, but you have the Biden restriction barring non-citizens. They have to prove that they've had the vaccine. And Novak Djokovic has had COVID, and he's recovered from COVID. I believe it's been over the last 3 years, almost 3 years now. He has had COVID infection twice. So he has natural immunity. And the study after study is showing from history that natural immunity is the best when it comes to protection, and it especially has been proven correct. These studies coming out against the jabs, but you know, we have this tyranny taking place here with this tennis player. He should be allowed to play, and if Biden was any type of leader, he would say yes, that we need to resolve these restrictions, especially when you realize what's happening at the southern border. Come on in, you're welcome. And no testing, no nothing. Just come on in at the southern border. So, again, COVID tyranny be taking place here with one of the number one tennis players in the world. Talking further about some tyranny, we have New Jersey's largest school district is saying that, well, the masks are still on right now. Newark's nearly 38,000 students and 6,000 staff members are set to have to wear masks here at the first week in September. Now that there is some possibility that sanity might come and they can reverse this, but knowing New Jersey and the governor there and the politics, mask them up. And again, you know, this is evil. When you start talking about how children are being affected because of the mask, the learning disabilities, the illnesses that have cropped up because they're wearing these masks all day, it needs to stop. And every state needs to say no more masking our kids. Senator Ron Johnson is leading investigations into the Biden situation here when it comes to some whistleblowers that have come forth when it comes to the FBI and how they handled Hunter Biden's laptop. And it looks like the Justice Inspector General, Michael Horowitz, is going to be looking into this and delving more into this. And when you look at Hunter Biden and the evidence and what's on that laptop, and they've already proved that it's his laptop, but yet and still they'll go to Mar-a-Lago raid President Trump's residence when they should be right there at Hunter Biden's place and going through looking for further evidence of the crimes that are obviously that has been taking place when it comes to Hunter Biden and the relationships with other outside the United States and the dealings that he's been involved in with China and Ukraine. But it's Biden, so hey. FBI, well, we'll just look the other way. Nothing to see here. When before the election, the Trump-Biden election, we'll bury this laptop and say, oh, it's just Russian, it's disinformation, nothing on this laptop. And now we see evidence that there was, and in fact, severe evidence that really, if it was anyone else, they would be in jail right now for what we're seeing coming off that laptop. Well, this week we see, I wish maybe I need to give Biden a call and say, hey, I've got a mortgage and hey, I need relief. How about giving me a reduction and a loan forgiveness, Biden. Hey, I'll take some money too from you. But that's what we've got here right now. So students that have worked hard, they've gone to college, paid their debt, or their parents have paid school loans for their children. Now all of a sudden, let's forgive it. And we know what the game is here. Let Biden thinks and the Democrats, so hey, we'll throw some money around and maybe they'll forget about what we're seeing with inflation and the recession that we are now in, and maybe they'll forget about that, or maybe they'll forget about Afghanistan and how we failed there and failed the United States citizens, leaving them behind, and soldiers that were killed because of our a failure there in Afghanistan. Or maybe they'll forget about the weakness that we're showing around the world. It has emboldened countries like Russia and China and North Korea because of the lack of leadership and the weakness that has been shown nationwide. But again, we have this so-called, and the joke of it is, just a week or two ago, Biden's patting himself on the back for the Inflation Reduction Act. Well, these forgiving student loans, that's just the opposite. That is an inflation. You want to see inflation skyrocket? Spend money like what took place here with this loan forgiveness. And again, Biden says, okay, I declare we're going to give student loan. He doesn't have the power. It's not constitutional. It's got to go. Congress votes on the increase. And that's not what the Biden says. Hey, I said it, so be it. But that's not the case. Just want to touch bases here. Did you hear this week that the science, Mr. Science, is going away? Yeah, Mr. Science. He is science. Anthony Fauci has announced that he's retiring. Kind of convenient now because it looks like pretty solid evidence or what we've been seeing here with some of these primaries already, that the House will be in Republicans' hands, and the jury's still up on the Senate. But I think Fauci says, no, I don't need any more inquisitions from Senator Rand Paul and Wuhan and what took place under my watch at the NIH. So we'll see. But Fauci is that looks stepping down finally. So again, just to touch bases here with this student forgiveness. It's unfair to those that have parents that have struggled and maybe taken a second job and focused on their child's paying off their child's student loan, only to have money thrown about for forgiving a loan. And again, if you walk into a bank and you sign on the dotted line that you've made a contract that you're going to pay back this loan, like so many students that have gone through and declared, made an oath or a promise, yes, I'm going to pay this back. And of the thousands or millions that have gone through that and made a contract and fulfilled that contract, and now it's, hey, forget about what took place the generations past, and the other students that have knuckled under and struggled to pay a loan off, and only to have Biden declare, okay, we're not. We're forgiving that loan, and it's not for him to. It's not for him. He doesn't have the power to forgive the loan. I'd like us to take a look here at a couple of video clips here. The discussing. We'll be hearing from Larry Kudlow at the second clip, and then we'll hear from a veteran talking about his sacrifice, and he had no forgiveness when it comes to the loans, but his commentary very insightful. So here, take a look at these two video clips. Take a look.
Following the president's remarks yesterday, our own Joey Jones tweeting, "I cannot believe I gave 2 legs for my tuition. What a dope I am, oorah." He joins us now. Clearly, you got a problem with this, Joey. Critics say it's fundamentally unfair. What do you say?
There is certainly a fairness element here that doesn't pan out. That tweet was more making fun of myself, I think, than anything, of saying, listen, you can give your body and soul to this country, and you don't do it because you expect something in return. You don't do it because you expect any kind of benefit or even to get ahead in life. You do it because you believe it's the right thing to do and it's something you can do. Then you juxtapose that to a class of Americans, and really, if you're my age, almost an entire generation of Americans who have been told the only way to make it in life is to go to a 4-year school, a state school, or a private school if you can get into it. You didn't really focus on the type of degree, just the fact of the degree. And then you go out and you take $100,000, $200,000 in student loans to get it. And then our government looks at this, and right before midterm elections, decides providing forgiveness for those who have a higher propensity to be a high-income household, rather than those that maybe, like my dad, were a brick and block mason or a welder or a plumber or doing some of the trade work that is at a huge labor deficit. Those people don't need attention. It's only those that have a student loan. My gripe with this is that it is about purchasing votes rather than helping Americans. And I can tell you why in one quick statistic. How much of this aid challenges universities to provide more scholarships or lower their tuition. There are 2 statistics to know. Since 1980, tuition has tripled after being adjusted for inflation. On top of that, you look at the school I went to, Georgetown University, $2.5 billion in endowment. Texas, $42 billion. Notre Dame, Michigan, and Texas A&M, 3 very different universities, $12 billion in an endowment. This type of aid only helps the higher education institutions. It doesn't help Americans.
Yeah, no question those endowments are high, and some critics say maybe you use that to lower tuition. Gretchen Smith, who runs a military nonprofit called Code of Vets, opposed the debt relief plan back in April. And she posted this on Twitter on Tuesday. She said, "I grew up in poverty in the mountains of North Carolina. I ate out of a garden, lived in government housing, shopped at yard sales. I joined the Air Force, earned my GI Bill. I attained 4 degrees and created my own version of the American dream. I am not responsible for your student debt." She tweeted something similar and put it on LinkedIn back in April. LinkedIn took it off, saying that it violated their hate speech policy. But some people now are responding to her, trying to draw an equivalence between the GI Bill and the student loan forgiveness. But people who are being forgiven their loans now, all they did was go to school. They didn't serve in the military.
Well, you could draw a closer resemblance between those that chose to go into public service to get student loan forgiveness. But even then, you're looking at a bad deal. Listen, if you go to college, get an education, and go out and try to make money. Go out and try to provide for your family. Listen, there's a real easy plan here. Spend 10 years in the industry that you're educated in, making as much money as you can, pay off your house, put a good nest egg together, and then go work for a nonprofit. I have someone that was blowing my messages up yesterday, complaining to me about this student loan debt forgiveness because it's not enough. What she forgot to mention until 30 minutes into it is that she works for a nonprofit on purpose, and she went to a private school for law school on purpose. Those are two decisions she made and didn't have to make. If you put yourself in a debt, then you have to put yourself in a position to get out of it. That's what we should expect from Americans, and that's what service members who put their life on the line did. Listen, I'm against using a benefit post-service to get you to enlist to begin with. I didn't use the GI Bill. I used vocational rehab because my entire life was turned upside down, and I needed a full package of opportunity, but I earned it. And that's all we ask. All we ask is that Americans make wise decisions and that our government regulate this cultural emphasis on a specific monolithic path of education. And maybe we look back at some of these trade school high schools that places like Georgia are doing that provide an opportunity for Americans to make money, not just Joey, expand their minds looking at Socrates' shadows on the wall.
Joey, I want to get this in because this just happened at the White House. Obviously, this is a big topic of conversation at the briefing. Listen to Jackie Heinrich with Corinne Jean-Pierre.
The president often says that we're not in a recession because we've got, record job market, record low unemployment, businesses investing in America at record rates. So why are those appropriate conditions to forgive student debt?
Well, thank you for laying out all the work that the president has done. That is 1,000% correct. But we've also said that we know that some people are still suffering. You've heard us say that too. Yes, the economy can be turned back on, and we've created, to what you've just laid out, nearly 10 million new jobs since the president took office. That matters. The economy is stronger than it's been in some time. And we have said that, you've heard the president say that, there's still some folks who need a little bit more help. And this is what the president is trying to do. Both can be true. It's not one or the other.
So Jackie Heinrich there, Joey, with the juxtaposition that the president keeps saying the economy is doing great, but people are suffering because their economy isn't great, so they need the student loan relief. Quick final thought.
Yeah, I don't remember if it was Washington Post or Wall Street Journal because they were so closely aligned on this topic, but one of them pointed out that by their numbers, the cost of this program pretty much nullifies the deficit reduction of the Inflation Reduction Act over the next 10 years. And that's just astonishing because that shows you the dirty politics. They spend 2 weeks selling us on a bill because it will reduce the deficit, and then 2 weeks later they're coming out with programs that will essentially get rid of that deficit reduction. And you know what? They won't bring it back up because that's a bad sticking point there they can't stand to live with. But that's what we get from D.C. And it's our job in November to remind them that we paid attention.
All right, Joey Jones, as always, good to see you. Thanks for joining us today. Appreciate it.
Subscribe to the Fox News YouTube channel to catch our nightly opens, stories that are changing the world and changing your life. From Tucker Carlson tonight.
Hello, folks, and welcome to Kudlow. I'm Larry Kudlow. So if it sounds like an election year handout, that's because it is. President Biden's student loan bailout, which essentially robs the poor to pay the rich, will cost taxpayers roughly $500 billion. That, according to the Committee for a Responsible Federal Budget. Between loan cancellations, extending payment deferrals for another 4 months, and a revised income-based repayment plan, this could affect over 40 million people. This is called election year politics. Just as bad, Mr. Biden doesn't even have the authority to do what he's doing. Nancy Pelosi had this right a year ago. Remember this one?
People think that the President of the United States has the power for debt forgiveness. He does not. He can postpone, he can delay, but he does not have that power. The President can't do it. So that's not even a discussion.
And from today's Wall Street Journal editorial, even Mr. Biden said in December 2020 that it was pretty questionable whether he had the authority to cancel debt. The Supreme Court underscored this in the West Virginia versus EPA decision, but Biden's vote buying knows no bounds. Now, as a number of studies have already shown, middle and lower income folks are going to finance high-end earners. Besides the obvious regressivity of this monster, it's just plain unfair. People who didn't go to college, or those who went but paid back their loans, will be furious. We're already seeing evidence of this. A bunch of Democratic senators and House members running for re-election have already jumped ship against Biden's student bailout. And as Ohio University economist Richard Vedder writes, the student loan handout is illegal, inflationary, immoral, and inequitable. Couldn't have put it better myself. And Biden's action will increase the moral hazard of student loans. If you know the government's going to bail you out and you don't have to repay the interest and principal, well, what do? Well, you take out more government loans. And then all these colleges, especially the high-end fancy universities and private liberal arts schools, well, they'll just keep jacking up tuition, which in turn will spur more student loans. Now, regardless of this loan cancellation, in 5 years, student loans are going to be all the way back to $1.6 trillion. And with crazy policies like this, it'll keep going even higher in the future. And the Education Department, which is in charge of all this, has no clue about lending or banking or credit, future income prospects. They're just there to say, yes, we will give you more loans. And then with a boss like Biden, we'll bail out more loans. So let me repeat, boss Biden's bailout. Now, the wonderful educrats, they're deep in the weeds developing critical race theories and various gender and sex programs for their constituent public schools around the country. Now, a piece of good news is here. In the weeds, the parents are starting to take school boards and schools with a bunch of election victories in Florida, Texas, Colorado, Kansas, Pennsylvania, and Virginia. But I digress a bit. Because of the Justice Department has labeled these parents domestic terrorists, and you can bet the bureaucrats, the educatorcrats, are totally on board with that. But then again, our democracy is starting to successfully fight back. This is good. The Education Department should get out of the student lending business altogether. Private sector financing by banks and other lenders should be restored. It was President Obama who ended private lending. And the student loan program has become an unmitigated disaster since then. And somebody, somewhere, should do something to reduce government-backed student lending. That's right, reduce. Just like someone, somewhere, should reduce overall government spending. That's right, cut spending. That, in turn, might reduce inflation and would surely reduce deficits and debt. Now, am I asking too much here? Well, I don't think so. How about repealing socialism? Well, the cavalry is coming. And that's my riff.